The sky was a canvas of smoke and dying embers, the horizon jagged with the skeletal remains of cities that had once thrived. Ash rained down like sorrow from the heavens, coating my armor in a gray, suffocating layer. The war had ended weeks ago, or so I'd been told, but the silence that followed was worse than the clashing of blades. The world was a graveyard, a fractured testament to human pride and alien ambition. I had walked for days through the wasteland, scavenging for food, water, and shelter. My name is Kale, a mercenary of no renown, surviving by instinct alone. I had lost everything to this conflict. My home, my comrades, even the faint hope that humanity might endure. But it wasn't despair that led me into the ruins of Valthera. It was curiosity, an impossible rumor whispered among the remnants of soldiers. A princess survives. A princess who shouldn't exist. The story didn't make sense. The royal family of Valthera had been wiped out in the first wave of orbital bombardments. The palace had been nothing more than rubble for months, and yet something had drawn me here. Some part of me refused to believe the dead were truly gone. I reached the outskirts of what had once been the royal district. Towers that had scraped the sky were now bent shards of metal. Windows shattered like eyes in agony. Fire still flickered in the crumbling streets, and the acrid scent of burning machinery clung to everything. My boots crunched over the remains of armored drones, their circuits fried, their bodies twisted in unnatural poses. And then I heard it, a soft, melodic humming that didn't belong in this wasteland. It was faint at first, almost lost in the groan of the ruins, but unmistakable. The sound of a voice, human, alive. I followed it cautiously, my hand never straying far from the hilt of my blade. The source of the song led me to a collapsed archway where the remains of the palace library had tumbled into a cavernous pit. The walls were etched with ash, and the air smelled of mildew and old paper. And there, in the center of the debris, was a girl. She sat atop a pile of broken stone, her hair a cascade of silver that shimmered like moonlight against the soot-darkened ruins. Her eyes, I had never seen eyes like hers. They were violet luminous, impossibly bright for a human in this world of dust and ruin. She hummed a lullaby I couldn't recognize, tracing her fingers over a tattered book that looked centuries old. She looked up at me as I approached, and I swear the air shifted. There was a weight to her gaze, a quiet command that belied her age. She could not have been more than 16, or maybe 17, but there was something regal about her posture, about the calm in her expression. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly, and yet her voice carried across the chasm of ruins like a bell. I could say the same. I replied, stepping closer. "Especially here. This place is not safe." She tilted her head, as though evaluating whether I was threat or curiosity. "Safe has not existed for a long time, but neither has despair if you choose to ignore it." Her words struck me in a way that startled me. How could someone so young speak with such clarity, such certainty? "I'm Kale," I said, extending a hand cautiously. "I've been wandering these ruins, looking for survivors." "Survivors," she repeated, as if tasting the word, a word heavy with false hope. "I am Lyra, Princess Lyra of Valthera." The name made my heart stop. Impossible. "Lyra," I whispered, shaking my head. "The royal family. They were all killed in the bombardment." "They were," she admitted, closing her book gently. "All but me?" I stared, disbelief rooting me to the ash-strewn floor. How are you alive? Lyra's violet eyes glimmered with something I could not name. Defiance, grief, perhaps a flicker of loneliness that mirrored my own. Some truths are not meant to be spoken, Kale. The world believes I died. That is safer for all. But I survived by hiding where even the eyes of war could not reach. The story she began to tell me was unbelievable, yet her voice carried a sincerity that no lie could mimic. She had been hidden by loyalists within secret catacombs beneath the palace, nourished by supplies smuggled from loyal citizens who had vanished when the city fell. Her guardians had died long ago, leaving her alone, but she had survived, not by fighting, but by becoming unseen. Why are you still here? I asked, unable to mask my awe. Why not flee? I cannot, she whispered, eyes drifting to the horizon. If I leave, the empire that crushed Valthera will know that I live. They would hunt me down, and I must understand what has become of our people. Even in ruin, Valthera must not be forgotten. The weight of her words pressed on me. She wasn't just a survivor. She was a symbol, a living remnant of a world that had been erased. And something inside me stirred, a determination to protect her, to ensure that her existence did not vanish into the ash along with everything else. The days that followed were both a test and a revelation. I helped Lyra navigate the ruins, scavenging for supplies, avoiding the roving bands of mercenaries who had claimed the wasteland as their hunting ground. She was no mere princess, as I quickly learned. She was clever, resourceful, and unafraid to act when danger approached. More than once, she saved me from traps I hadn't even noticed. One evening, as we sheltered in the remains of a collapsed theater, she confided more of her story. I was trained, she said, her voice low, not in the ways of battle, but in the ways of observation, strategy, diplomacy. The elders believed knowledge could save me, even if power could not. She paused, eyes reflecting the dying light of the fire. I have read every book that survived. I know every secret the city kept, and I know that one day Valthera might rise again. Her words filled me with an impossible hope. For so long, I had survived only for myself. Now, the survival of another, someone so extraordinary, made the world feel alive again. It wasn't long before rumors of her existence spread. A scavenger spotted her silhouette in the ruins and whispered to a passing gang, who passed it on to a small faction of warlords consolidating power. The war was over, but ambition never slept. Soon we were hunted. The first attack came at dusk, when the shadows were long and deceptive. I remember the moment vividly. I had been keeping watch while Lyra rested. The first screams were muffled, but the smell of burning would carry it on the wind. I drew my sword as the attackers emerged from the broken streets. Tall, armored figures, mercenaries with no allegiance but coin. Lyra, surprisingly, met me at the entrance to our makeshift shelter. "You will not take me," she said, her violet eyes burning. She held her hand out, and from the shadows of the theater, a blade of light ignited in her palm, a weapon I had never seen before. "What is that?" I demanded, awed. "It is old, Kel," she said simply. "An artifact of my lineage. It responds to those of royal blood. Only I can wield it." The battle was brutal. Lyra moved with a grace I could barely comprehend, striking with precision that belied her years. I fought beside her, protecting her flank, yet she was more than capable. When the last of the mercenaries fell, we stood among the ruins, breathing heavily. "You are more than I imagined," I said, finally allowing a smile. She shook her head. "I am less than the world needs me to be, but I will learn." Over the following weeks, we traveled together, seeking refuge in the scattered remains of the city, unearthing caches of supplies, and sometimes relics of a time before the war. Lyra's knowledge of ancient texts led us to forgotten vaults, where technology and secrets of Althera's old empire had been hidden. One night, as we rested beneath the skeleton of a cathedral, she spoke of her fears. "Kale, you must understand, if the others find me, not all will want to kill me. Some will want to use me. I am a symbol, a tool, and I cannot let anyone take that from me, not even those who claim to be friends." I placed a hand over hers, feeling the warmth despite the chill in the air. "Then I'll be here. I won't let them, not while I breathe." Her gaze softened, and for the first time, I saw vulnerability behind the strength. It was a rare gift, and one I did not take lightly. The turning point came when we reached the edge of the ruined capital. From a distance, we could see a massive encampment, tent cities stretching as far as the eye could see. The factions that had carved the wasteland into fiefdoms were consolidating, preparing for war once more. And among them, a figure I recognized, General Karen, the man responsible for the bombardment of Valthera. He had survived, and he knew she lived. The confrontation was inevitable. I wanted to approach cautiously, but Lyra refused. "We face him, Kale, not with fear but with purpose. If we survive, Valthera might rise. And if we fall, then the world will truly be lost." We struck at dawn. I had prepared for battle, but even then, nothing could prepare me for Lyra. She moved with command over the battlefield that seemed preternatural. Soldiers fell before her, not because she lacked mercy, but because she demanded justice. Finally, she faced Karen alone. I watched from a distance, heart in my throat, as she wielded the royal blade with precision. Karen sneered, underestimating her, until the moment the blade met his chest. The light of the artifact flared, and the man who had destroyed an empire crumpled, defeated. Silence fell over the field. Lyra stood alone, victorious, yet not triumphant. There was no joy in the battle's end, only the quiet recognition of duty fulfilled. I approached her, kneeling beside the girl who had survived impossibility. "It's over," I whispered. She shook her head. "It is only beginning, Kale. The world is broken, but it can be mended, and I must be the guide." In the weeks that followed, we began to rebuild. Not cities, not empires, but hope. Lyra's existence became a beacon for the scattered survivors, a symbol that even in ruin, life could persist. She did not seek power for herself, only restoration for a world that had almost ceased to exist. I stayed by her side, not as a knight, not as a soldier, but as a witness to a miracle that should not have been. In a world that had forgotten its kings and queens, we found meaning in survival, purpose in the impossible, and in the midst of ruins a princess who shouldn't exist. And in her eyes, I saw not just the past of Althera, but the future of a world that might yet rise from the ashes.